Hello and welcome to the Free Associates. That's right, folks. The Free Associates, freedom of association, freedom to associate with anybody, anything that comes our way, or free associate. To just be in a rainy day mood, just be look out and be like, wow, this weather reminds me of depression, feeling bad. Oh my God, could it end? Could it possibly end? I don't know. Now, Waylon didn't notice anything different about me today, but that's because he just doesn't pay attention.
He's not wearing the jacket.
That's not the only thing, but that's one of the things. That's good that you finally noticed that. I had to make an executive choice. Do I go back into my house and go up into the second floor where quiet time is supposed to be happening and get ensnared in my 4-year-old's "is quiet time over" kind of thing? I couldn't kick the hornet's nest. So yes, Waylon, I didn't dress up, and you can't say anything about that because boom, I have you hypnotized. You are now hypnotized, and you will be polite to me because I am your elder, and I am very knowledgeable. Good. Waylon is successfully hypnotized. Now, that's not the only thing that's different. I don't have my microphone in front of me. But you know what?
Wow.
Well, you didn't notice that, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
No, it's all right. But it might even be better audio than that Yeti Blue microphone as it should happen. Now, Waylon likes to blow up my scenes, so I'm going to blow up his scene and do a little boom. Oh.
Wow.
That's
wow.
it.
Look at that.
There it is.
Look at that.
Now I successfully guessed, right? I'm right?
I'm not telling you yet.
You know. That's your screaming yellow. I don't know if you guys were with us yesterday.
That is amazing, though. I haven't seen a mock-up of it. Wow.
Yeah. Well, so you just admitted as much that you doing a screaming yellow. Hey, look, it makes all the sense in the world because orange and yellow, like you're gonna have these cars parked next to each other, so you want it to be like a sunset, right? It's gonna be like a sunset in your driveway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
The sunset never. The sun never sets on the Wayland Empire.
That's it. Now you need a brown one or a blue one or something like that. Yeah, you'll get them. So Wayland's, people are going to be confused in the Valley because they're used to seeing Wayland's orange van, and now they're going to see Wayland in a yellow van, but without windows. Do you want to tell them about your car wash debacle?
Oh man, I mean, I got to say this. I was essentially caught violating the rules, okay? Like, I want to put that out there first, but the rules of the car wash are that you have one pass for one car. My pass, I had a new windshield put in, so I had the pass and it wasn't stuck onto the windshield, so I had it, so I was like, whatever. I have two vans, and I was interchanging them through each one of the vans. And so I went, and one of the guys was like, did you get this painted? And I was like, no, I have two vans now. And I told him the entire story, and he kind of just sat there and like nodded like this. I go through. Next time I go around, he terminated my pass.
So wrong.
See,
so
this
wrong.
is, yeah, well, okay, so this is the thing. Like, I flirt with the rules in every situation. I mean, we're not on campus, so I can't park illegally. So I had to do this, but it was like, come on, man. Like, you can't just be like, hey, listen, you can't do that. Here's your warning type thing. So,
well, you were honest with him. It wasn't.
Yeah, I didn't lie to him. I was just like, yeah, I got two vans now. It's awesome. And he just kind of like,
know. I think there's some van envy going on there or something like that. Which one did you go to, by the way, just out of curiosity?
One in Hadley.
There's one in Hadley, a golden nozzle?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There is. That's right. All right. Anyway, we don't want to besmirch the reputation of anybody, but it does seem a little sour. Well, we're very psyched to see any day now. Boom, folks. That's right. And it does look good, man. I think you've done a great job choosing a color. You were thinking purple, but that just doesn't feel right.
I love that. I love that carpeting inside too. I don't have that carpeting, but man, look at that.
And the kind of like orange velour seats and stuff like that. That's excellent.
Yeah. It's like I want to go to the drive-through and watch Krull or something in that.
Yeah. Well, it was like that era was like there was a lot of sunset colors. Although that's almost like a 70s van, not an 80s van. But whatever. Yeah, they were a little behind the times. All right, folks. Well, we've been doing our Politico series, and we're actually scraping the bottom of the barrel here. I actually sent Waylon the text for this one. He's like, oh, we already did this one. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, sorry. So we're going to probably do one or two more of these Politico predictions, all these people who wrote these predictions are probably like, oh, I forgot I wrote that. Oh my God, it's 8 weeks later. It seems really crazy. But we're doing it. We're going to look at it. And today we're looking at Michiko Kakutani. He's the author of a 2018 bestseller, The Death of Truth, and former chief book critic of the New York Times. Yeah, I think he's actually a very famous book critic. That name is like, he's the guy who can make or break a fiction writer. And it's called Revive Trust in Institutions. He writes, the coronavirus pandemic, one hopes, will jolt Americans into a realization that the institutions and values Donald Trump has spent his presidency assailing are essential to the functioning of a democracy and to its ability to grapple effectively with a national crisis. A recognition that government institutions, including those entrusted with protecting our health, preserving our liberties, and overseeing our national security, need to be staffed with experts, not political lobbyists. That decisions need to be made through a reasoned policy process and predicated on evidence-based science and historical and geopolitical knowledge, not on Trumpian alternative facts, political expediency, or what Pynchon and Gravity's Rainbow called a chaos of peeves, whims, hallucinations, and all-around a-holery. Instead of Trump's America First foreign policy, we need a multilateral diplomacy and to the understanding that cooperation with allies and adversaries too is especially necessary when it comes to dealing with global problems like climate change and viral pandemics. All right, and so perhaps that we can I'll read the rest of it. It's kind of a long piece, so I apologize. Most of all, we need to remember that public trust is crucial to governance, and the trust depends on telling the truth. As the historian John M. Barry wrote in the 2004 book, The Great Influenza, a harrowing chronicle of the 1918 flu pandemic, which killed an estimated 80 million people worldwide. The main lesson from that catastrophe is that, quote, those in authority must retain the public's trust and, quote, the way to do that is to distort nothing, to put the best face on nothing, to try to manipulate no one. Okay, Waylon, so what do we have here? What are your thoughts?
I agree with the sentiments. I think that the unfortunate case is that people want to hear the truth that they want to hear. Mm-hmm. And we live in an age where the diversity of our media outlets and the diversity of information distribution has made it so where we're stuck in bubbles that are validating whatever preconceived notions that we have. And so the truth has really become muddied in all of this. And so truth has really become subjective. And so I like the yearning for facts and data and all of this, but like you bring up a quote all the time about data manipulation and everything. And it's just, I can't 100% understand what he's saying, and I wish that we could gravitate towards some general consensus. And for the most part, I think the actions are speaking louder than words. I think that the outliers of the protests that we're seeing, that's not a huge population of individuals. For the most part, the individuals are adhering to staying inside and quarantining and doing all of this. So that is we're heeding the warnings of the scientific community and the health community, which is good. But for the fundamental level of kind of trust in institutions and understanding of truth as the facts that are laid before us, I think that it gets a little subjective there.
Absolutely. And you say truth is becoming subjective, but truth is always subjective, I think. I mean, your truth is not my truth. There's that great Robert Evans quote, there's three sides to every story, your side, my side, and the truth, and no one is lying. You know, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And I think that here's one of the things I've been thinking about, and I think scientists do this. First of all, science is not, there's only these like lawn signs that say science is real, and that's fine. So, science is real, but like, depends who's funding the study. With data studies and stuff like that, you really have to look very closely, because you can do your study and then I'm going to pay somebody to do my study. And then now we have a problem, because everything can be curated. I can make a study that says anything, even using real science, I can do that. I believe. Here's the other thing. I think that's what's been going on, and maybe this is as a product of polarization, is that everyone's overshooting the truth. That is to say, a lot of people, there's I don't know if that phrase that resonates with you, but like, listen, if I'm a climatologist and I really believe climate change is a major problem, My worry is that some of them are overshooting the truth because they're trying to change us from our behavior, right? It's almost like you do it with a kid. Like you can't present just the reality because they'll be like, well, that's 50 or 100 years from now. Like, I'm not going to worry about that. You have to basically say, no, in 5 years, your house is going to be underwater. Like, there's this almost like fear tactic thing going on to try to wake people up out of their slumber. But that becomes, do you get that sense at all? I feel like a lot of times, let me just put something out there. I felt like the union did that. The union and other people did that with the contract negotiations.
Oh yeah, it's like classic rhetoric. You know.
Yeah, classic rhetoric, and kind of like, so this is a real problem though, because when we rely on scientists, I think there are scientists who are activists. I'm not saying they shouldn't be. And I think some of the tactics are rhetoric, and some of the tactics are, as I would say, overshooting the truth to try to, because everyone's overshooting the truth. And so does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, you have to watch out for the Chicken Little effect. I think that if you exaggerate or you go into kind of hyperbolic, rhetoric, people are going to call you out on that, or when the next time comes, they're going to say, you said this last time, and
that's exactly what I'm saying. Well, that's not exactly what I'm saying, but I think it's a useful addition. Like, your credibility, you can't use it up because it's a boy who cried wolf kind of situation. Not exactly, but like you say, if because people were talking about 2 million people in America dying, it's like, well, that's not going to happen, at least not on this round. I think it's just very hard to feel like anyone's really credible right now. I just do not find credible sources. So yeah, I don't necessarily believe in a return to institution. I think that the institutions themselves have kind of bankrupted themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you on the idea that it's not necessarily credible. The thing that I agree with here is I would tweak that a little bit. It's not necessarily non-credible sources or things that you can't trust. It's just that we have so little information on how things are going to unfold, and they change from day to day. You need to simultaneously be listening and analyzing what's going on, while at the same time being a critic of timelines, the death tolls, all of this stuff. We are always in this constant fluctuation of doing victories and failures, and the opening up of certain states could be could exacerbate this problem, or it could do nothing, or the tighter restrictions in California or Michigan could be working, or they could not. So there's a lot of different things that you have to look at and scrutinize, and I think that also comes into play when you're thinking about credible sources, because what is a credible source when we don't know exactly how this is going to play out?
Well, that's right. And I guess I have to say, just personally, I feel like I'm constantly being manipulated by numerous sides to be afraid of one thing or another. It's afraid of not opening up, afraid of walking outside without my mask, or whatever it is. Now, I'm okay because I'm a grown up and I can be like, well, this feels like manipulation. But I do feel like in this case, there's just like fear has become such a massive tool for getting your agenda across that, and I get it. If I'm a pandemic scientist, I'm going to be like, I really need people just to stay home. So I have to message this in a way that really like scares people from going out. Like, even if it's not that accurate, I need to scare them. I see people driving around with their masks on. I do not understand that. Why would you drive around in your own car with your mask on?
I think it's more so the idea that they just forgot it was on.
No, it is not, Waylon. Come on, it is not. There's like
I've accidentally had it on when I was driving, and I
don't think that's it. I'm sorry. I don't. Yes, I believe that can happen upon occasion, especially to someone like you. I think there's a lot of people who are driving with their masks on. I don't know what that's a signal of.
Well, it could be virtue signaling. I mean, you're doing the right thing. You're
doing the right thing. Yeah. That can kind of rub me the wrong way, because that's kind of herd think a little bit. I like to be able to think. I don't certainly want to be contrarian either. Like, I don't need to go in the other direction. I guess I just feel like there's just massive manipulation going on. By the way, not like, I'm not trying to say on behalf of one side or the other. On a separate note, Waylon, what do you think about, and I know this gets us a little bit off this reading, but I think it's important. Do you think that you talked about states reopening? Do you think that this is an example of where the federal government should be stepping in and be like, Georgia, you can't open up yet, please. We're gonna say May 18th or something like that for all states because this is too confusing. It's gonna be too hard to kind of corral. Where are you at with federal power saying that to the states?
It's an interesting question, and that's something that there needs to be. I would say that there would need to be dialogues had with all of the governors, constant communication with all of the governors, and ultimately each state decides when, allowing the states to decide when those appropriate times were, but working in coalitions. So there's certain kind of coalitions being formed. New England, for instance. So the governors are working together to formulate plans and everything. That area might look entirely different than the Midwest or California or the South. So I'm not saying
with the really distinct difference that you can drive from one area to another, right? It's not like there's no national boundary between New England and the Mid-Atlantic. And so that is a real problem because I get what you're saying. Like, it's not a bad idea that the regions should try to figure this out. But if people can just drive up from Georgia to Massachusetts, you're like, oh, well, that just really doesn't really work that well. It's hard to even understand what's tracking that or how to follow that.
Yeah. Well, again, there's certain pockets of what's going on, and I think that what the federal government needs to be strengthening is their distribution networks and really taking control over stockpiles and resources and things like that, and really be the leader on that. If you the podcasts that I listen to and the articles that I've read are just, it's literally, it will be Kansas calling up a distributor and, oh, I'm sorry, Ohio got to us first. So it's a first come, first serve. Everybody's kind of competing for all these resources on a state level, and that should not be the case. It should be that the federal government has is taking control of that system, looking at where that distribution should be, and really taking the lead on that, which we haven't seen. When it comes to those restrictions, I think that is left up to the states with the communication thereof with the governors in a real plan. And if everything devolves, that's where the government can step in. But I think that you want to have the handling, and hopefully they're all on the same page. Hopefully
we know that they're not. I mean, just to be clear, they're just not. So I get your point. Here's, we talked a little bit about federal requisitioning of supplies or like regulating it or whatever. And that makes a lot of sense on one level. But of course, politics can then get played, which they've played all the time. Air Force bases are shut down in this state and opened up in other states. And so it can get pretty ugly if you leave it up to the federal government. I actually thought that the states deciding when they go into lockdown makes way more sense than when letting them decide when they come out of lockdown, because, conceivably COVID would hit Utah 2 weeks or a week after it's really going to hit California. So to me, that made sense. But like, once it's in the country, I feel like it makes more sense for the federal government to be like, we're going to stamp it out across the nation because we don't have national boundaries between the states. You can literally, although I'll tell you, we're driving down to Rhode Island on Saturday, and I'll be curious if they stop us at the state line, because they have been stopping people, as you pointed out. I mean, they can't turn you away, but they've been stopping people. And I just think in this case, federalism makes sense because of just people crossing state lines if they get sick again and an outbreak happens in Georgia. Because listen, Waylon, think about it this way. I don't want to be argumentative with you. I'm just offering a counterpoint here. Like, what if a really bad outbreak happened in Atlanta or Georgia somewhere? People would leave the state. That's what we've seen. You know how many different license plates I have in my neighborhood? California, Washington State, New York, And so do you see how that could be problematic and perhaps why the federal government could say, listen, no one's going to reopen until May 18th because we got to make sure this is out of the country.
Oh, yeah, no, it makes sense. I think that the other thing that we're missing, which is a huge significant component of this, is by undertaking that on the federal level, the federal government is therefore the one to blame. And we're in a political season where we're months away from a vital election, and the president does not want the responsibility of making that decision. And the people he's going to isolate, it's a lose-lose situation. You either lose with the people who think that you're not opening soon enough, and you're going to lose with the people that don't think that you're opening too soon. So I think that from a federal standpoint and from unfortunately a political standpoint, that's why we're seeing kind of a lackadaisical effort by the federal government, because the heat is on the governors right now.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I do think that's a failure of democracy during times of crisis, is like everyone's running away from the decision, basically. There's this big move that no one really wants to make a decision. Now, I would say that there are a lot of governors whose fortunes have risen during this. Because that's the other thing, is that when you're important, then you have more power. And obviously in New York, we've seen that. I think Charlie Baker's probably his power has gained during this. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that he's been perceived as doing a good job.
So there's opportunities. I mean, I agree with you. And obviously no one's heard from Joe Biden in 2 months. I mean, has he said anything?
Well, really? I listened to the Daily today, and it was actually on Joe Biden and how this political landscape, or the campaigns have been dealing with all of this, and what he has been doing is targeted local television news interviews in key swing states. So zooming in.
This is the worst kind of thing that you're talking about.
No, it's not. Why was that? Why do you think so? That's actually, I would say, the viewership of the local news is up more so than ever because of people staying at home during COVID.
Hold on, pal. Yeah. I'm not saying it's not effective. I'm saying it's playing politics to the nth degree. To be identifying congressional districts that are in swing states it's cynical. It's not really being a leader. It's just campaigning.
Why? I don't understand what you're saying. You're supposed to not campaign at all?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. No, I think that, listen, you're campaigning to be, and we don't really do politics on this show, so we can just take this a little bit down the road. But if you're campaigning to be president of the United States, listen, I understand why Joe Biden isn't very visible right now on the national level, because it's like you would say, a lose-lose situation. There's not much that you're going to gain from going and saying anything right now on a national level. But, that's like people like Biden who have political calculus. I mean, I get it. There's more to be lost than gained by saying anything. But by playing politics and swing districts and getting on local news, it's a good strategy. But it doesn't equate to leadership necessarily. You have two people who are negating what actual leadership looks like to try to stay alive. And I get it, because if you can't get elected, you can't be a leader. But again, might be one of the failings of the democratic system, democracy during a time of crisis. Like, this is the problem, is that's how appeasement happened of Hitler, right? Is that the British public did not want to check Hitler because they didn't want to go back to war. So Chamberlain went and he was like, okay, you can take the Sudetenland and whatever you want. And then Hitler goes unchecked because there's a democracy back at home. But you can't always respond to that when there's times of crisis. Sometimes you have to be like, well, I know this is going to be unpopular, folks, but this is the right thing to do. And maybe I don't have a career after this. Maybe I do. Let's keep my fingers crossed.
So what is the right thing? I'm confused as the right thing to do in that situation.
Yeah, I get it.
But what is the right thing to do in that situation?
Well, I don't know for sure, Waylon, but conceivably you could say the right thing to do is for the president perhaps to exert federal power and say, listen, Georgia, I'm sorry. You're just going to have to wait a couple more weeks. We need to understand this a little better before we start opening things up again. And we do need to kind of move in some kind of unison just to understand this. Could you please, or not could you please, but you're going to give us a couple more weeks, and then we hear that you want to open up. We get it. We're going to be as responsive as we can. Give us 2 more weeks to come online as a nation. Not because that's really what it's about. It's really a difference about 2 or 3 weeks. So that would be unpopular, but I think that might be the right thing to do.
Well, I think that would be unpopular in Georgia.
Right.
I think that I think that that's the general consensus for which I also subscribe. I think that there should be a unilateral decision making that is incorporating everybody should be making the same choice on that level, but it also should be made on the state level unilaterally, if that makes sense.
Well, how do you do that? Just all the states get together and make a decision together?
Well, we're seeing the ways if they don't do that, we'll see and there's going to be it's either going to be, this is an experiment, I guess.
Yeah.
They're either it's either gonna ramp up there and people are gonna be like, told you so, or they're going to be like, nothing happened, and we're like, oh, okay, so maybe we can tweak our decision making because of
yeah. I get it. It's complicated. And I think that Trump, if he was in the conversation, could say, well, I just don't believe we should be shut down for 2 or 3 more weeks. I actually think that's a bad decision for the economy. So I'm going to force Massachusetts to open up right now. Well, that's the other side. And let me just say one more thing, Waylon, is that his base is in the states that want to open up. So
yes, that's what I was going to say.
It would be very, very hard for him to go to his base and say, we're going to do what Massachusetts wants. And they're going to be like, what?
So the underlying philosophy here is that the states that are opening up are not the states that are saying we should stay closed. You know what I'm saying? So like there is still democracy in function in these other places, and that level of autonomy is working on that state level. They just, in my opinion, are making a terrible decision. But it's their right to make that terrible decision when it comes
to it. Right. It's their right until the federal power exerts itself, and then it's no longer their right. Yeah. I mean, federal power can exert itself and do all kinds of things, go both good and bad, and force the states to do stuff or not do stuff. So but I understand what you're saying. Now, speaking of democracy, no democracy exists on the show because I control you, although clearly I don't. This whole hypnosis thing doesn't really work. I think you're only hypnotized when you see the gold light, but I'm going to ask you to cue the exit music. And then you're such a willful person that as soon as the gold light is gone, you're like, screw Cody. I'm going to say whatever I want. He's an idiot. All right. Well, I don't really know. I just don't know. I came in the conversation not knowing, and I leave not knowing, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not knowing. In fact, I'm more than okay with it because this thing is so wildly complex that I feel like knowing would make me uncomfortable because there would be something about it that I just could not trust. So anything I say is in light of just having a conversation. That's all, just having a conversation. So we really appreciate that you've been with the Free Associates. Now, Waylon, when do you get to pick up your Screaming Yellow van?
It's going to be sometime next week, late next week.
Is that right?
Late next week.
Why does it take so long? Come on,
I don't know, but I got 2 vans. If I didn't have 2, I would be like, I got come on, let's hurry up. But all good things take time.
Very nice week with Vanessa. I really want you to treat Vanessa really well on this week. This is your goodbye week, okay? This is your goodbye week. You'll be dropping off Vanessa next weekend at my house, and she'll be taken very good care of. The kids will love her.
Retire her over to a farm upstate New York.
Old man Cody's farm over in Florence. Well, folks, you've been listening to the Free Associates. If you're on WMUA Amherst, we'd love to have you listen to us. If you're on Facebook Live, then you're seeing us in the flesh. And we just want to remind you to stay cool and stay calm. Don't be stupid, be smart, and just have a good day. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.